of God is only going to pour out. This prophecy right here has been something that has been mentioned in Pentecost, in Acts, as far as when Jesus went back to heaven, God poured out the Holy Spirit. It's been pointed to as far as within the charismatic movements. It's been pointed to within the Azusa Street. We've claimed this thing in so many different areas of our lives that we all want it. And it's always been my favorite one because it says, first and foremost, that your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. That means that your children have come to a point of maturity within God that they are moving within the gifts of God. Who doesn't want their children to move within the gifts of God? Even the very words of your children shall pronounce God's goodness, God's grace, God's answers to troubles. Because how many kids right now do we know or do we don't know within this world right now that is living in the darkest of times? It's unimaginable what the children are being bombarded with right now. And we would all love to see our sons and daughters being out there doing work, which would have meant that we as parents would have already done our job. In other words, we've trained our children to get off their butts. We've trained our children. So, in other words, we've not told our children what to do. We've shown our children what to do. We have lived in such a manifestation of God within our life. Even our children see it. And our children have come to this point of supernatural maturity where they can go out and talk to other kids. Lance and I, no matter what we do, we cannot go up to an 8-year-old and communicate on an 8-year-old level. Marty can? We can. Okay, all that being said, you just don't speak that language. It's just like us going to an older person. Now, however, I've got a certain thing that I can relate to older people because I seen an old man doing something the other day, and I looked at him. Man, I can tell he's hurt. And I said, it don't get no easier, does it? He said, son, you don't know yet, but you will soon. And I said, oh, I'm already there. I'm already knocking on that door. I said, but if this is an indicator, I don't want to come inside what's inside this house. But I ain't got no option, so I might as well see how you're handling it and go. And I seen a dude one day. I was out there trying to help a guy do some work, and he has like legs gone. Diabetes got his legs and had all the problems with it. Now he's walking on these little metal legs, and the dude's out there still making a living, see? Guess what? He said, because if I quit working, what's going to happen to me? He says, I'll die. So guess what? I ain't quitting working. I don't care if it hurts. I don't care. You know, if you think, well, you know, you always think about false teeth and all this stuff. Can you imagine what it would feel like having contraption lamps to your knee joints, and you're sitting and you had to learn how to balance? But can you imagine the will that it took to get up off your butt and stop feeling sorry for yourself? At that point, Erica, you're no longer going, well, you know, I'm gonna live my life, and then when God calls, or I'm gonna change later on. You got to make a decision right there. And the thing is that, so we've got this. It says, your old men shall dream dreams. This is the thing. So I'm sitting there the earliest morning, and I'm praying. I'm like, okay, God, show me. Come on, God. You know, I try not to get anxious, but at the same time, I kind of like to know, because there ain't nothing scarier than sitting up here and not even having an idea what I'm going to talk about. That's terrifying. And the thing is that I've learned to look to God every day, and I've learned. And so this morning I heard this thing about your old men shall dream dreams and young men shall see visions. And I kept having this over and over and over in my mind. As I've told you, if you're not looking to hear from God, you're not going to hear from God, because God He wants to talk to you, but if you don't want to hear from Him, you know, there's a point where He says, I will no longer abide with you. He gets tired of talking to you. Because how many times do you get tired of talking to your kids? How many times do you get tired of talking to your employees? How many times do you get tired of talking to your friends, telling them, you're stupid? You know, I've told you the story about a guy. I told him, I said, man, if you don't straighten up, quit drinking, quit doing the drugs and stuff, your wife is going to leave you. Sure enough, one day he come up here crying. He said, well, I'm sorry, what do I got to do? I said, well, what happened? She left me. I'm like, and?
I tell myself every day, like literally, that's how I talk to
You have to. And the thing is that I'm like, he says, well, I don't know what I've got to do. I said, I can tell you exactly what you have to do. He says, well, what's that? I said, move on. Well, she's got a big black boyfriend. I said, here you go. You got your rewards. You got the rewards. You want it. Now you want to change and make everything go back. But the problem is, once you cut your arm off, it don't grow back. You got to live with that sucker from now on. So, you're old men dreaming dreams. And I sit there and I like this one. I love this verse right here. Because what it talks about, it's a word, and this is where I was going to go off into with the study of this word. I was like, man, there's got to be some real meat behind these dreaming dreams and seeing visions. And the thing is that what it points to, being healthy enough spiritually that you can hear from God. That's what this word, and it's actually the word is something. Shalom. 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 And it means to be healthy enough to hear from God. And C-H-A-L-A-N. And you'll find, if you Google it, you'll find it has some French too. You got to bypass that. You got to go with Hebrew meaning, because if not, you'll be reading about his life. But the thing is that it talks about being healthy enough to hear from God. But what it points to, Lance, is being at a point to where old men are running into a problem, and God grants them wisdom of how to solve the problem. That's the thing that I dug up, man, because Dory, isn't it nice when God gives you wisdom of how to handle a thing, because you would handle it my way. And this is the thing that I've been going with, because it's funny here recently, a lot of areas in my life, God has granted me wisdom of how to handle things, because I'm too stupid to handle it right on my own. And so, but I've also come to this point of humility to where I understand, Zeke, that I'm stupid. And the sooner that I come to that point, it's like in AA, they tell you that you got to understand you are at this point where you are stupid, because you keep doing the same thing over. You've got to understand you've got to have help. And so when you humble yourself, say, okay, God, I'm not doing this. You have to start creating new priorities, new boundaries that you can't go beyond. And then God will start pouring out to you. You're now healthy enough. You're now in a position enough to where God can heal you. God can start taking you here at this point. But until you get broken, until you get pushed down in there, some of us are so stupid that we're not going to learn until we are in a ditch. Honestly, think about that. How many times are we going to learn? Well, how many times do we learn how to create when do we learn to create a budget? It's when we're broke. And we got 14 hotties out there floating around. Oh, I got to create a budget. Duh, they taught you that in 6th grade. I remember before I went to high school, I remember guidance counselors telling me guidance. I'm like, but I can do this on my own. I know how to do this stuff. And I can see my guidance counselor looking at me going, God, you're stupid. So, but the thing is that I'm sitting there. So as a perfect example, I remember it was 2 weeks ago. No, actually longer than that. Yeah, about 3 weeks ago now. And I was doing a job for a guy, and it hit me. What are you going to do when he stiffs you? Monty is the same guy that we was going to sell a house, and a member of this church needed a place to stay, so we let them stay in our home. Within a period of 2 months, the house that we was going to put on the market that I just got finished, the real estate lady came up to me. She says, Monty, I cannot list your home. What? Been less than 2 months. What happened? She said, Monty, it's the nastiest home I've ever been in my life. And I'm like, I'm letting people say that for free. And needless to say, it caused a terrible split within the church. Families left because of them. And I'm even the boogeyman. And so I'm thinking, because now I'm losing about $60,000 is how much I'm losing. What do you think Monty was going to do? I'll tell you exactly what Monty was going to do, Billy. Monty had done got his chainsaw out. Monty had done devised his plan. Monty was going to take his chainsaw, and he was going to go first. Monty was smart. Monty was going to flip the breakers off to the house, so that way he's not cut through electricity. Thinking, you got to think.
Good, smart guy.
Smart guy. But I was going to cut the power off. Then I'm going to take my chainsaw, David, and I'm going to walk all the way around the house. I'm going to cut all the way around the house. I done planned this out. And I'm like, if you're going to screw me, guess what? And guess what I heard God say? God speaks to me in inopportune times. He's like, don't you dare. Man! I tell you, I want vengeance. And he says, vengeance is mine. Man! What if God don't do it like I would do it? It don't matter. This is God. What are you going to do? And I'm like, because I was loaded up that night to go do this. Yes. Oh, yeah, I was going to do it. Seriously, I was on my way to do it. And he says, don't you dare.
Hey, you know what, cuz, on that note right there,
You go second.
with that. Me and Dory got 7, we was talking about it yesterday, we got 7 pugs with that, from Timmy. Timmy couldn't take care of the pugs, the eyes were closed and there were closed still. Mama got killed. So Timmy brought him and said, all right, I can't do it. I said, I'll take him to the sheriff. I'll take him to the shelter. I love animals. We got 9 rescue animals, okay? I'm going down the road, almost getting ready to turn to the humane side. I go, I hear them words. I thought you loved my animals. I come back to the house where he said, well, how'd it go? I said, we're raising puppies.
Yep.
And we raise them like little kids. And I mean, he asked, I thought you loved my animals. I heard that plain as day because I just had to share that.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
So here we are, is I'm loading this stuff, and it took me all day long to move all this guy's dirt. And every time that I'm doing a load, it took me, 9 or 10 hours to move this thing because I didn't have no counterbalance on the back of the tractor, so my front end was heavy. And every trip, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You know what Monty heard? He's going to screw you. Every trip for 9 hours, Sabrina. Do you know how well that percolated in my mind? And I knew it. I knew it. This was going to happen. I'm like, oh my God. Because he mysteriously came out and he sent me this text right before. Hey man, this guy's a software engineer, lives in $1 million home. And he says, can I pay you on 18th? My card was hijacked. I'm like, sure dude, not a problem. It's not a big deal. So, long story short, I'm planning all the ways to sabotage this dude. I'm planning all my revenges, and I hear God like, is that what you want to do? Even this morning, I sit there and I hear, and God says, okay, that your old men are going to dream dreams. In other words, you're going to have wisdom on how to deal with the thing, but yet I'm like, I want to cast all this wisdom away because on the 18th, which is 2 days ago, guess what he had? Still hadn't done yet. Still hadn't paid me. Matter of fact, he told me that his wife sent me a thing. She sent me a cash app for $300. She says it's half. Well, that's not half of what you owe me. I said, so is there a problem? Well, no, she's going to send it to you tomorrow on the 18th. I was like, okay. I said, so that's tomorrow, right? Yeah, we'll get squared away. I'm like, okay. And so I'm sitting there this morning, and I'm hearing this voice. God says, okay, I'll handle these things. I'm going to take care of these things. But my mind is focused solely upon this guy. Here he is. I'm thinking about construction liens. I'm thinking about all these different things. And so I waited till this morning and I texted him. And naturally, he's like, well, she's gonna pay you today. And then he got mad. He says, well, we're just gonna wait for, till I mow your, till I call you for you to come home. I'm like, you think I want to mow your yard again? Think I ever want to do business with you again? I was like, man, I appreciate that. I'm just being nice and kind. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, all my mind is consumed by it's being consumed by my problems, and it's not being focused upon what I should be doing. Does that make sense? You realize that is a trap of the enemy. He's trying to get you consumed. Well, I got to handle this and I got to take care of this. God says, give that junk to me. You do what you're supposed to do. And so several times, like I said, notice I use the word several times, I put my focus back. It would always sneak back in, then I'd put it back here. And so I was like, okay, so I'm going through this thing, and I hear the young men will see visions. In other words, these young men will see what's coming. They will have a dream. They'll take this vision of what they're going to do and how they're going to serve God. We all want to live in this world to where God does all these things for us. And if if you don't want to live in this world, then again, you classify under that broad category of stupid, AJ. You understand what I'm saying? You fit within this category. You fit within the stupid category. There are other smart people, then there are the stupid people. I've always been a resident of the hyper stupid people, the really stupid people, because I ain't stupid, but I act stupid. That's being hyper stupid. So, I'm sitting there and I'm going through this thing, and I was like, okay, this is where we want to be. We all want to be at that point where God gives us supernatural wisdom. But the problem is that we did not read the disclaimer. Did anybody catch the disclaimer in this? It says, what did it say? And it shall come to pass afterwards. What? You something got to happen? If we go back and we read the front of it, it